food stamps again? My sister's voice carried across the dining room like a champagne flute shattering on marble. She wasn't asking. She was performing. I watched her from across the table, fork halfway to my mouth, and felt something cold settle in my chest. Not anger. Not yet. Just recognition. The kind you get when you finally see the shape of something that's been forming in the dark for years. Victoria, my wife said quietly. Just the name. Nothing else. But Victoria wasn't done. She leaned back in her chair, designer dress catching the light from the chandelier overhead, and smiled at our son across from her. I mean, Dad, we're just concerned. Michael said you were looking at apartments in Riverside. Riverside. That's transitional, Michael finished. He adjusted his glasses, the ones that cost more than most people's monthly rent. We want to help, obviously, but we need to understand the full scope of the situation. The full scope of the situation. I set my fork down carefully on the edge of my plate. 63 years old, and my children were talking to me like I was a charity case they'd discovered at a board meeting. The butler, Raymond, appeared at my elbow with more wine. I waved him off. I'm fine, I said. You're not fine. Victoria's voice had that edge now, the one she used in her investor calls. I'd heard it through her office door often enough before she moved out. You sold the Palo Alto house. You're driving what is that? A 2015 Camry. 2014, I said. She closed her eyes like I'd just confirmed her worst fears. Dad. It runs. It's embarrassing. My wife's hand found mine under the table. Her fingers were cold. She squeezed once, a warning or a comfort, I couldn't tell which. Elena had always been better at reading rooms than I was. 28 years of marriage, and she still surprised me with what she noticed. The consulting business didn't work out, Michael said. Not a question. A statement for the record. We understand. The market's changed. Your expertise it's vintage. There's no shame in that. Vintage, like I was a wine that had turned. I have projects, I said. Projects. Victoria exchanged a glance with her brother. Dad, you've been working on projects for 3 years. What do you have to show for it? I could have told them. I could have opened my laptop right there and shown them exactly what I'd been building in the converted garage of the house they didn't know I owned under an LLC they'd never heard of. I could have pulled up the infrastructure maps, the client lists, the revenue streams that ran quiet and deep like underground rivers. Instead, I said, not much. Raymond reappeared, this time with a silver tray. On it sat tomorrow's Forbes magazine, still in its plastic wrapper. He placed it beside Victoria's plate with the careful precision of a man who'd been doing this job for 40 years. Tomorrow's mail came early, he murmured. Victoria barely glanced at it. She was still looking at me with that expression I'd seen her use on failing startups, pity mixed with impatience. We want to help, she said again, but we need honesty, complete honesty. Where are you financially? Comfortable. Dad. Michael leaned forward. We're not asking to be cruel. We're asking because we care. You're our father. If you're struggling, we have resources. But we can't help if you won't let us in. Won't let us in. As if I'd been the one building walls. Elena's grip tightened on my hand. Under the table where they couldn't see, her thumb traced a small circle on my palm. 3 circles. Our old signal. Danger close. I appreciate the concern, I said. Each word came out level, controlled. But I'm managing. Managing? Victoria picked up her wine glass. Is that what we're calling it? The chandelier above us was original to the house. Czech crystal, installed in 1924 when Elena's grandfather built this place. I'd sat under it for every major family dinner for nearly 3 decades. Birthdays, Thanksgivings. The night we told the kids about Victoria's acceptance to Stanford. Michael's first startup acquisition. The night, 2 years ago, when they'd both shown up with lawyers. That night, I'd sat in this exact chair and listened to my children explain why they needed to restructure the family trust. For tax purposes, they'd said. For efficiency. For the future. I'd signed the papers because Elena had nodded, just barely, and because I trusted that the two people I'd raised wouldn't gut me in my own dining room. Actually, I said, and something in my voice made Raymond pause on his way back to the kitchen. I've been meaning to ask you both something. Victoria set down her glass. Of course. Last year, March, there were some documents, restructuring papers for the old tech holdings. Do you remember those? The room got quieter, not silent. The house was too old for silence, too full of subtle creaks and the whisper of expensive HVAC. But quieter. The diversification strategy, Michael said. Yes. Why? Did either of you sign anything on my behalf? The question hung there like smoke. Victoria's smile didn't change, but something behind her eyes did, a recalculation. We were your authorized representatives, she said carefully. That was part of the trust restructuring, for efficiency. Right, efficiency. Is there a problem? Michael's hand had moved to his phone, face down beside his plate. Elena squeezed my hand again, 4 times now. Abort. Get out. But I wasn't done. No problem, I said. Just trying to understand the timeline. When exactly did the transfer of primary ownership finalize? Dad, this really isn't dinner conversation. When, Victoria? She set down her napkin with the kind of precision that costs $50,000 a year in private school etiquette classes. June 14th. Why? Just curious. I picked up my water glass. That was 2 weeks before I found out. The silence wasn't subtle anymore. Michael recovered first. He always did. That was his gift, the quick pivot. Found out? Dad? We sent you all the documentation. If there was a communication breakdown— There wasn't a breakdown, I said. There was a strategy. Victoria stood. I think we should talk about this another time, when you're less emotional. I'm not emotional. You're clearly upset. I'm interested, I said. In the process, the timing, the fact that, somehow, over the course of 6 months, every asset I spent 40 years building got redistributed without my active knowledge, but with my technical permission. That's impressive planning. We did what was necessary, Michael said, and there it was. The truth in his voice, flat and clean. You were stalling. The opportunities were time-sensitive. Someone had to make the hard calls. Someone had to. Yes. I looked at my son, really looked at him. At some point in the last 5 years, he'd learned to hold eye contact like a weapon, steady, unwavering. The kind of look that makes investors nervous and competitors fold. He'd learned it from me. And now? I asked. Now we're worried about you, Victoria said. She'd sat back down, and her voice had gone soft, concerned. We're worried you're isolated, that you're making decisions from a place of pride instead of practicality. We want to bring you into the fold, put you on a real salary, consulting position, something with structure, so I don't embarrass you. So you're taken care of. Elena stood abruptly, her chair scraping against the hardwood. I need to check on dessert, she said, though we both knew Raymond had that handled. She looked at me, and her eyes said, Come with me. I stayed seated. I don't need to be taken care of, I said. I need to be left alone. Dad, Michael started. Dinner's over. I pushed back from the table and stood. The Forbes magazine caught my eye, still wrapped in plastic beside Victoria's plate. Something about it bothered me. The timing. Raymond didn't usually bring mail to the table. You're being irrational, Victoria said. Probably. We're trying to help. I know. I walked out of the dining room. Behind me, I heard Michael's voice, low and urgent. This is exactly what Dr. Brennan warned us about. Paranoid thinking, persecution complex. They'd been talking to a therapist about me, about my mental state. In the hallway, Elena was waiting. She didn't say anything, just handed me my jacket from the closet and her car keys. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Anywhere but here," she said. "Before you say something you can't unsay." "I think we're past that." "Not yet. We're not past it yet." She was wrong, but I didn't argue. I just followed her out the front door, past Raymond, who was suddenly very interested in polishing the entry table, and into the cool November air. My daughter's Tesla was parked in the circular drive next to Michael's Porsche. My 2014 Camry sat at the far end, near the street, like a servant's car. Elena drove. I watched the house recede in the side mirror, every window warm with light, looking exactly like the kind of place where families gathered and nothing terrible ever happened. "How long have you known?" Elena asked. "About the restructuring? 6 months?" "Not that. How long have you known they planned it?" I turned to look at her. "What? How long, Daniel?" The streetlight strobed across her face as she drove. Yellow, dark. Yellow, dark. 2 years, I said finally. Since the first attorney meeting, I saw the signature dates on the preliminary docs. They'd been planning for months before they told us. "And you signed anyway." You nodded. I nodded, she agreed. "Do you know why?" "No." She turned onto the highway, heading west, away from the old money neighborhoods and toward the coast. "Because I wanted to see how far they'd go." Something in my chest tightened. "Elena, they're our children," she said. "I gave birth to them. I raised them. I taught them to read and tie their shoes and treat people with dignity. And somewhere along the way they turned into strangers who would gut their father for stock options. They think they're helping. They think you're obsolete." The word hung between us like a diagnosis. "Maybe I am," I said. "Are you?" I thought about the garage, the servers, the code running on systems in 14 countries, quiet infrastructure that nobody noticed until it stopped working. 3 years of careful building while everyone thought I was deteriorating. "No," I said. "Then we have a problem." "We?" Elena's hands tightened on the wheel. "You think I've spent 28 years married to you and don't know what you're planning?" "I'm not planning anything." "You're planning everything. You've been planning since the night they brought the lawyers. I've watched you, getting quieter, simpler, letting them think you're confused, sad, washed up." She glanced at me. "You're setting a trap." "That's paranoid." "Is it?" I didn't answer. Outside, the city lights had given way to darkness. Ocean darkness, the kind that goes on forever. "If we do this," Elena said quietly, "they can never come back from it." "Do what?" "Whatever you're building in that garage, whatever you've been doing at 3 a.m. when you think I'm asleep, whatever made you smile when Raymond brought that magazine to the table." I didn't smile. "You almost did, for just a second, like you knew something they didn't." She was right. I had known something. The Forbes issue they'd see tomorrow morning. The cover story they'd already forgotten I'd been interviewed for 6 months ago, back when they still thought I was relevant enough to ignore. "Pull over," I said. "Daniel, pull over, please." She did, onto a scenic overlook that was empty this time of night. Below us, the Pacific crashed against rocks, invisible but loud. "I built something," I said. "While they were taking everything apart, I built something new." "I know. It's not illegal. I know that too. But it's not kind." Elena turned in her seat to face me fully. Her eyes were dry, clear. "Good," she said, "because they weren't kind to you. And I've spent 2 years watching you absorb it, letting them think you were broken, playing small. I was protecting them." "From what?" "From me. From what I'm capable of when—" I stopped. "When what?" "When I stop being their father and start being something else." The ocean kept crashing, The car was warm, but I felt cold. They made a choice, Elena said. They chose money over you, status over family. They looked at everything you built and decided they could do it better without you. So now they get to live with that choice. You're angrier than I am. I'm a mother. I'm allowed to be angry when my children turn into strangers. I looked at my wife, really looked at her. I'd always known she was intelligent, observant, but I'd somehow missed the steel underneath, the anger she'd been carrying in silence. If we do this, I said, they'll hate us. They already do. They just hide it better. Victoria called me vintage, I heard. Michael's been talking to a therapist about my mental state. I know, Dr. Brennan. Victoria mentioned it 3 months ago. They wanted to establish a medical record, in case they needed to prove incompetence. The cold in my chest spread. You knew that? I've known everything. I just wanted to see if you'd figured it out yet. Why didn't you tell me? Because you needed to see it yourself, without me pushing. If I'd told you, you might have convinced yourself I was wrong, that they were still the kids we raised, but you needed to watch them twist the knife. She was right. I had needed to see it. The full scope of their betrayal, not just the legal maneuvering, but the contempt underneath. What now? I asked. Elena started the car. Now we go home, to the real one, the house they don't know about, and you show me exactly what you've been building. And then? Then we finish it. She pulled back onto the highway. All of it. We finish what they started. I pulled out my phone and opened an encrypted folder. Inside were documents, maps, communication chains, 3 years of careful preparation. They think I'm nothing, I said. Let them. They think I'm broken. Better. They're going to find out. Elena smiled, and it wasn't kind. I know, she said. That's the part I'm looking forward to. We drove through the dark toward the house in San Leandro, the one I'd bought through an LLC they'd never thought to investigate. Behind us, back in the estate with the crystal chandelier, my children were probably still at the table, probably discussing my mental health, my paranoia, my embarrassing decline. Let them talk. In my pocket, my phone buzzed. A message from a number with no name attached. Forbes drops at midnight EST, confirms everything. You were right about the timing. I showed Elena. Tomorrow's going to be interesting, she said. Tomorrow, Elena corrected. They find out you were never gone at all. You were just watching, waiting, building. I looked out at the darkness flying past and felt something shift inside my chest. Not anger anymore, something colder, cleaner, purpose. Food stamps, I said quietly. What? Victoria made a joke about food stamps, at dinner, like I was broke. Elena laughed, and the sound was sharp. She has no idea, does she? What you're actually worth right now. No. Good. Keep it that way. Let her sleep well tonight. And tomorrow? Tomorrow, Elena said. Everything changes. Before we go any further, hit the hype button. Take a second to subscribe and like the video. It really helps the channel grow. And tell us in the comments, what would you do in this situation? The house in San Leandro didn't look like much from the street. Single-story, beige stucco, the kind of place you'd drive past without noticing. That was intentional. Inside, it looked even less impressive. IKEA furniture, bare walls, a kitchen with exactly 4 plates, 4 bowls, 4 of everything. The house of a man who'd downsized hard and meant it. But the garage told a different story. Elena followed me through the connecting door. I hit the lights, and the space came alive. Not with chrome and flash, nothing that obvious. Just racks of equipment humming with the kind of quiet that means serious money, serious infrastructure. Jesus, Elena said. It's not as much as it looks like. Daniel, this is... She walked to the nearest rack, careful not to touch anything. This is a data center. Small one. In our garage. Technically, it's a workspace. She turned to look at me. How much did this cost? Less than you'd think. I built most of it from parts, redundant systems, but basic. Nothing exotic. How long? 3 years. Since 2 months after the restructuring. Elena moved deeper into the garage, past the servers, past the workbenches, to the back wall where I had 3 monitors mounted. She touched one screen, and it woke up. Code scrolled past, dense and incomprehensible. What is all this? She asked. You want the technical answer or the real one? Real. I joined her at the monitors, pulled up a different screen. This one showed a map 14 countries, hundreds of connections, data flowing in real time. Infrastructure, I said. Backbone services. The stuff nobody thinks about until it breaks. Domain management. Certificate authorities. Authentication services. The boring, invisible shit that makes the internet actually work. You built all this in 3 years? I acquired some of it. Small companies nobody was paying attention to. I paid cash, kept it quiet, rolled them under different corporate structures. Elena studied the map. These connections, who's using this? Everyone. That's the point. Cloud providers, security companies, Fortune 500s, who outsourced their infrastructure years ago and forgot who they were actually paying. It's the kind of business where if you do it right, nobody knows you exist. Until they need you. Until they need me. She turned. Show me the revenue. I pulled up a different screen. Numbers filled the display. Monthly recurring revenue, annual projections, profit margins. Elena was quiet for a long time. Then, this is substantial. Daniel, this is more than substantial. This is, you're printing money. Not printing, earning, providing value. But yeah, it's profitable. How profitable? I showed her the year-end projection. Oh my God. She sat down on the single rolling chair I kept in the garage. They have no idea. No. Victoria and Michael pushed you out of the family holdings, restructured you into nothing, and you've been building this the whole time. Yes. While living in that motel in Riverside. Part-time, I needed them to think I was struggling, needed to look the part. The Camry. Bought it for cash, old enough to be embarrassing, new enough to be reliable. Elena laughed, but it had an edge. You're insane. Probably. They tried to erase you. They succeeded. Legally speaking, I don't own much of anything from the old life. The house in Palo Alto, gone. The investment portfolio, gone. Everything they could touch, they touched. I let them. Why? I closed the financial screens, pulled up something else. A document tree, branches spreading like roots. Because I needed to see the whole structure. Who they were working with, which attorneys, which advisors, which friends were actually loyal versus which were just along for the ride. You can't see that when you're fighting. You only see it when you surrender. You were gathering intelligence. I was learning. And now? Now I have leverage they don't know exists. Elna stood and walked the perimeter of the garage again, processing. I let her think. She was better at this than I was, the strategic picture, the long game. The Forbes article, she said finally. That's the trigger. Not a trigger, a marker, proof that I'm not who they think I am. What does it say? I pulled it up on my phone, the advance copy I'd been sent for fact-checking 2 months ago, the one that would hit newsstands in 8 hours. Meet tech's most secretive billionaire CEO, Elena read aloud. The infrastructure king nobody knows. How one engineer built an empire in silence while the world looked elsewhere. She looked up. Billionaire? On paper. Most of it's equity. But the valuation's real. And they don't know. Nobody knows. That was the deal with Forbes. Delayed publication. No advance buzz. They wanted the exclusive on a stealth story. I wanted time to position everything exactly right. Position what? I pulled up another screen. This one showed a different kind of map. Not infrastructure. People. Connections. Relationships. Victoria's Series B funding, I said, pointing, closes in 2 weeks. 3 major investors. All of them use my authentication services. They don't know it's mine. It's buried under 6 layers of corporate structure, but they use it. So authentication is a trust business. If there's any question about the reliability of the service, investors get nervous, especially in a security-focused startup like Victoria's. Elena's eyes narrowed. You're going to tank her funding. I'm going to introduce uncertainty, that's all. Just enough to make people ask questions, check references, dig deeper. Into what? Into her due diligence practices, her research, her claims about competitive advantage. Claims that are exaggerated, not lies exactly, but optimistic. The kind of optimistic that looks brilliant in a pitch deck and shaky under scrutiny. Daniel, I'm not fabricating anything. I'm just making sure people look. Elena moved to another part of the map. And Michael? Michael's easier. He's overextended. 4 investments, all leveraged. 3 of them in companies that depend on stable infrastructure costs. Commodity pricing. Predictable scaling. Your infrastructure. Some of it. Not all. But enough that if prices shifted unexpectedly, not dramatically, just enough to affect margins, his portfolio starts looking riskier. You're going to raise prices. I'm going to adjust them to market rates. They've been artificially low. Introductory pricing that I've maintained longer than normal. Bringing them to standard rates isn't price gouging. It's business. Elena sat back down. They'll lose money. They'll lose projected returns. Their investments will go from home runs to doubles. Still profitable, just not spectacular. And their reputations will suffer. Michael's built his brand on having a golden touch, on being the guy who sees winners early. If his current batch underperforms, people remember that. Angels are only as good as their last exits. She was quiet, thinking. The servers hummed around us, processing transactions, routing requests, keeping the invisible machinery of the internet running. This isn't just about money, Elena said finally. Is it? No. This is about making them feel what you felt. Yes. Making them watch their lives get smaller while everyone congratulates them on being so successful. Yes. Making them understand they built everything on sand, on your absence, on the assumption you were nothing. Yes. Elena stood and walked to me, put her hands on my face. Good, she said. But we need to be smart about this. I'm being smart. You're being strategic. That's different. Strategy wins battles. Smart wins wars. She dropped her hands. Show me everything, every connection, every pressure point, every place where you have leverage. I need to see the whole picture. Why? Because you're thinking like an engineer. You're looking at systems and infrastructure and logical consequences. But our children aren't systems. They're people. And people don't just lose money and get humble. They get desperate. They fight back. We need to be ready for that. She was right. I'd been so focused on the mechanics of the plan that I hadn't thought through the human variables. What Victoria would do when her funding got questioned. How Michael would react when his investments underperformed. They'll come after me, I said. They'll come after both of us. They'll assume I'm part of it even if I wasn't. I can protect you. I don't want protection. I want partnership. If we're doing this, we're doing it together, which means I need to understand every piece of it, every vulnerability, every assumption. I didn't sleep the night before Victoria's funding round collapsed. I knew it was coming, had known for days, but knowing didn't make it easier. At 2:47 a.m., Michael called. I stared at the phone. Elena was asleep beside me. The bedroom was dark except for the glow of the screen. I answered. You awake? Michael's voice was calm. Too calm. Now I am. Good. We need to talk. Face to face. Tonight. It's almost 3 a.m. I know, that's the point. No attorneys, no witnesses, no Elena documenting everything for your legal team. Just you and me. Like it used to be. Nothing's like it used to be. Exactly why we need to talk. He paused. There's a parking garage, 4th and Brannan, level 3. I'm here now, alone. This is insane. This is necessary. Victoria's funding dies tomorrow. Her company dies in 6 months. I need to understand if you're doing it on purpose or if you've convinced yourself this is justice. Don't give me the corporate speak. Not at 3 a.m. in a parking garage. Give me the truth, the real reason you're letting her fail. I sat up. Elena stirred but didn't wake. What do you want, Michael? I want to make a deal. One that saves Victoria and protects you. One that ends this before it gets worse. Worse how? Come to the garage. Find out. He hung up. I sat there in the dark, phone in hand. Every instinct said it was a trap, a recording device, witnesses hidden somewhere, Michael being strategic as always. But curiosity is stronger than caution, and despite everything, he was still my son. I got dressed quietly, left Elena a note. Meeting M, back soon. Don't worry. The drive downtown took 20 minutes at that hour. The city was empty, just street cleaners and late shift workers and people like me who couldn't sleep. The parking garage was one of those anonymous structures that serve the financial district. Concrete and fluorescent lights and numbered spaces. I took the ramp to level 3. Michael was leaning against a Tesla, not his too old, too beat up, maybe a rental. You came, he said. You asked. I didn't think you would. Thought you'd assume it was a setup. It probably is. It's not. He pushed off the car. No recording devices, no witnesses, no tricks. Just a conversation between a father and son who used to understand each other. That was a long time ago. 2 years. That's not long. It's long enough for everything to change. Michael walked closer. He looked tired. Really tired. Not just sleep-deprived, tired something deeper. Victoria's going to lose her funding tomorrow, you know that. I assumed. Her investors are walking, all of them. Too many questions about infrastructure dependencies. Too much uncertainty about whether her father's going to support her or sabotage her. Doesn't matter what the truth is. Perception is reality in venture capital. That's not my problem. It's exactly your problem. Because when her funding falls through, she's going to have to lay off her team, shut down operations, default on contracts, and everyone's going to know it happened because her father controlled infrastructure she depended on and chose not to help. I didn't choose anything. I ran my business normally. If that created problems for her, that's a structural issue she should have addressed. You could have helped her. How? By giving her preferential treatment, special pricing, priority support? That's exactly the conflict of interest her investors were worried about. By being her father instead of a vendor. The words hung between us in the fluorescent light. I was her father, I said quietly, for 30 years, and she repaid that by restructuring me out of my own holdings, using my signature authority to push me aside. That was business. So is this. No, this is revenge. This is consequences. Michael turned away, pacing. I thought you'd be different. I thought you'd be bigger than this. Rise above, be the adult. I'm being the adult. I'm letting my adult children learn that actions have consequences, that treating people like disposable assets comes with costs. You're letting her fail. I'm letting her live with her choices. That's the same thing. No, it's not. Failure from external sabotage is one thing. Failure from poor planning is another. Victoria built a company that depended on infrastructure she couldn't control and relationships she'd damaged. That's not my fault. That's hers. Michael stopped pacing and looked at me. What do you want? What? To end this. To stop whatever you're planning next. What do you want? I'm not planning anything. Bullshit. You've been planning for 3 years. The Forbes article wasn't random. The timing wasn't coincidence. You waited until we were both vulnerable, Victoria's funding, my portfolio coming due for performance reviews, and then you revealed yourself. That's strategic. That's planned. So what's the end game? There is no end game. Then why haven't you moved on? Why are you still in San Leandro in that sad house? Why are you still watching us? If you're really over it, why not disappear? Take your $1 billion and go live in the Caribbean or wherever rich people hide. Because this is my life, my business. I'm not hiding from anyone. You're hiding from normal, from moving past what we did. You're stuck in this revenge loop where every day you wake up and think about how to make us suffer. I don't think about you at all. Liar. The word echoed in the empty garage. You know what I think? Michael said. I think you're terrified. I think you built this whole empire in secret, and now that it's public, you don't know what to do with it. You don't know how to be successful and visible at the same time, so you're lashing out at the only targets you can reach: your children. That's psychoanalysis, not reality. Is it? Because from where I'm standing, you look scared. You look like a man who's realized he won the battle but doesn't know how to win the war, and now you're stuck. I'm not stuck. Prove it. Help Victoria, not for her, for you. Prove you can be more than what we made you. Prove you can be merciful. Mercy is for people who show remorse. Has Victoria shown remorse? She's your daughter. She was my daughter. Now she's an adult who made adult choices. I'm respecting those choices by treating her as an independent agent responsible for her own decisions. Michael laughed, but it was bitter. You've thought about this, really thought about it, justified every piece of it. That's how I know it's revenge. If it were just business, you wouldn't need justification. I don't need justification. I'm giving you explanation because you asked. Then let me give you something. Michael pulled out his phone. You want to know what I've been planning? What my strategic move is? Not particularly. I've been liquidating, selling positions, converting assets to cash, getting liquid and portable, because I realized something you didn't. This isn't ending. Whatever you're building toward, whatever the final move is, it's going to be bad, and I don't want to be anywhere near it when it lands. There's no final move. There's always a final move. In chess, in business, in revenge, and you're patient enough to wait for it. So I'm getting out, taking my money, taking my wife, and leaving. Maybe overseas, maybe just out of tech, but definitely away from whatever explosion is coming. You're running. I'm surviving. There's a difference. He pocketed his phone. But before I go, I wanted to give you one chance. One last opportunity to be the father I remember. The one who taught me to build things instead of breaking them. Help Victoria. Not because she deserves it. Because you're better than what we made you. I am what you made me. No, you're what you chose to become. And right now, you're choosing to be the villain in your own family's story. Is that really who you want to be? I looked at my son. At some point, I couldn't pinpoint when he'd become a stranger. Someone who looked like the boy I'd raised but thought like someone else entirely. Someone calculating enough to frame mercy as weakness and survival as wisdom. I'm not the villain, I said. I'm just not the hero anymore. What does that make you? Free. Michael absorbed that. Free to do what? Whatever I want, without considering what my ungrateful children think about it. That's sad. That's honest. It's lonely. So was being systematically erased by my own family. At least now I'm lonely on my own terms. We stood there in the empty garage. In the distance, I could hear traffic, the city waking up. Another day starting for everyone who wasn't standing in a parking garage at 4 a.m. having this conversation. I'm going to tell Victoria you said no, Michael said finally. That I tried. That I gave you every opportunity to be decent. And she's going to hate you. Really hate you. Not just angry hate, the kind that lasts forever. The kind that makes her tell her future children that their grandfather was a monster. If she has children. She will. Maybe not with James, he's already shopping for divorce attorneys. But eventually. And when she does, you'll be a ghost story. The cautionary tale of what happens when you let ego destroy family. Better a ghost than a doormat. Is it? Yes. Michael turned to go, then stopped. One more thing. What? I'm not coming to anything. Not holidays, not birthdays. We're done, and I'm taking Elena's side in the divorce. There's no divorce. There will be. She can't stay married to you and stay in Victoria's life. She's going to have to choose, and when she does, I'm going to make sure she chooses correctly. Elena makes her own choices. We'll see. He walked to his car. The Tesla started with its characteristic electric whir. He drove down the ramp, and the sound faded. I stood alone in the garage. My phone buzzed. A text from Elena. "Where are you?" I called her. "Michael called me to a meeting," I said. "It's over now. I'm coming home." What did he want? To make a deal. To save Victoria. What did you say? No. Silence on the line. Then, good. Come home. I drove back to San Leandro. The sun was starting to rise, turning the Bay Bridge gold. The city looked beautiful from a distance, clean, organized, like everything made sense. Up close, nothing made sense. But maybe that was the point. At home, Elena was in the kitchen. She looked at me and didn't ask questions, just handed me coffee. "Michael thinks I'm the villain," I said. "You are the villain, in their story. That's fine." "Is it?" "Daniel. You can't be the hero and get what you want. Heroes sacrifice, heroes protect, heroes let themselves get hurt to save others. You're done being that person, which means you're the villain now. Accept it." "What if I don't want to be the villain?" "Then you should have let them get away with what they did. Should have absorbed it and moved on and been the bigger person. But you didn't. You built something in secret. You waited. You're executing a plan. Those aren't hero actions. Those are villain actions, and that's okay." "How is it okay?" "Because villains win. Heroes get remembered. Villains get what they want." She was right. And maybe that was the problem. Maybe I didn't want to want what I wanted. Maybe some part of me still wished I could go back to being the father they needed instead of the enemy they'd created. But you can't go back. You can only go forward. "Victoria's funding dies today," I said. "I know. Her company dies in 6 months. Probably. Michael's leaving, taking his money and running." "Smart of him." "Is it? Running. It's smarter than staying and fighting a battle he can't win. Michael always knew when to fold. That's why he's been successful. He doesn't let ego keep him in bad positions. Unlike me. You're not in a bad position. You're in a strong position. You just don't like what strength costs." The coffee was hot and bitter. I drank it anyway. "What happens now?" I asked. "Now Victoria's funding falls through. Her investors walk. She has to lay off her team, start downsizing, and we watch. We document. We prepare for whatever legal action she takes, because she will take legal action. She'll sue, claim fraud, manipulation, tortious interference, whatever her attorneys think will stick." "Will any of it stick?" "No. Because you didn't do anything illegal. You ran your business. She built a company with structural vulnerabilities. That's not your fault." "It feels like my fault." "Feelings don't matter. Facts matter. And the facts are clear." We sat in silence. Outside, San Leandro was waking up. People going to work, normal lives, normal problems. My phone buzzed. A news alert. Guardian Protocol funding round falls through. Sources cite infrastructure concerns. "It's starting," Elena said. Over the next hour, the story spread. TechCrunch, Bloomberg, The Verge, all covering Victoria's failed funding round, all mentioning infrastructure dependencies, all noting her relationship to recently revealed infrastructure billionaire Daniel Reeves. None of them explicitly said I'd sabotaged her. None of them had to. The implication was clear. At 9 a.m., my phone rang. James. "This is your fault," he said without preamble. "Her funding fell through. 3 investors simultaneously pulled out, all citing the same concerns you planted." "I didn't plant anything." "You talked to Miranda Scott at the gala, raised questions, made her nervous. That spread to the other investors. This is on you. This is on Victoria for building a company with single points of failure. You're her father. I'm also a business owner with no obligation to subsidize her poor planning. I want a divorce. From Victoria? Yes, and I want you to know it's because of you. Because you destroyed her company and our financial future and any possibility of the life we planned together. That sounds like a conversation you should be having with your wife, not me. I'm having it with both of you. She's upstairs crying. Been crying since 6 a.m. when the first investor called. Crying about how her father destroyed her, how you planned this, how you waited until she was most vulnerable and then struck. I didn't strike. Market forces. You could have helped. You chose not to. That's a choice. That's intention. And I'm done pretending otherwise. So divorce her. That's your right. I'm going to. And I'm going to make sure everyone knows why. That her father's vendetta destroyed our marriage along with her company. Do what you need to do, James. I will. And you can live with the consequences. He hung up. Elena had been listening on speaker. That was fast. He's protecting himself, getting out before her company fully collapses. Smart. Corporate attorney through and through, sees the liability and cuts it loose. He sounded angry. He's not angry at you. He's angry at her. For putting him in this position. For having a father who's more strategic than she accounted for. But it's easier to be angry at you. Safer. My phone buzzed again. Victoria this time. Not a call, a text. I hate you. I hope you know that. I hope you wake up every day and remember that your daughter hates you. That you destroyed her. That you chose revenge over family. I hope it eats you alive. I showed Elena. Don't respond, she said. She's in pain. She's in reality. Let her sit with it. She's my daughter. She was your daughter. Now she's an adult, learning that betrayal goes both ways. Let her learn. I set the phone down, walked to the garage. The servers were humming. The infrastructure was running. Somewhere in 14 countries, my systems were processing authentication requests, routing traffic, making the internet work. And somewhere in San Francisco, my daughter was crying while her husband packed his bags. I'd won. It didn't feel like winning. Daniel. Elena was behind me. You need to decide something. What? If you're done. If this was the goal, Victoria's company failing, her marriage ending, her finally understanding what it felt like to be erased. If that was the point, then we're done. We can walk away, live our lives, let the dust settle. And if I'm not done, then Michael's next. And after Michael, we need to think about what comes after. Because revenge doesn't have a natural endpoint. You have to choose when to stop. Otherwise, it just keeps going until everyone's destroyed, including you. I don't want to destroy Michael. Then what do you want? I didn't know. That was the problem. I'd spent 3 years planning Victoria's fall, planning how to make her understand what she'd done to me. But I hadn't planned past that moment. Hadn't planned for the hollow feeling that came with watching your daughter's life collapse. Hadn't planned for the question Elena was asking. What now? I want them to understand, I said finally. To really understand what they did, not intellectually, not as business strategy, but as betrayal, as something that destroyed their father and then came back to destroy them. Victoria understands. Trust me. And Michael? Michael's running. That's his version of understanding. He sees what's coming and he's getting out. That's respect, in its own way. He respects your ability to destroy him, so he's avoiding the fight. That's not the same as understanding. No, but it might be enough. Might be? Elena came closer, put her hands on my shoulders. You need to decide if you're doing this to teach them a lesson or to feed something in yourself that can never be satisfied. Because one of those has an endpoint, the other doesn't. Which am I doing? I don't know. That's why I'm asking. I looked at the servers, at the infrastructure I'd built, at the empire I'd created in silence while everyone thought I was nothing. I want Michael to feel it, I said. the way Victoria's feeling it now. I want him to watch his portfolio collapse, his investments fail, his reputation as someone with a golden touch turn into used to be somebody. I want him to understand that I'm not nothing, that I was never nothing, that I was just waiting. And then? Then I'm done. Promise? Yes. Elena nodded slowly. Okay, then let's finish it. Let's make Michael understand. And then we walk away, we live our lives. We let them rebuild or not rebuild, but we're out. We're done. Agreed? Agreed. She kissed my forehead. Then let's go to work.